Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Good Torah. So Charles Dickens began his famous novel, The Tale of Two Cities. I think it was written about the French Revolution. He said it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. I think it really rings true now in these days. I mean, there's something big going on. It's kind of terrifying. I mean, the world is on the brink of possibly massive, conflicts between nations. I mean, seems very imminent. Unfortunately, there's so much suffering and illness and depression, but it's also a time, so that may be the worst of times, but it's also the best of times. It's a time of great spiritual potential. And we just saw the Siyum Shas. We just saw the completion after 7.5 years. Everyone learning Daf Yomi, learning one page of the Gemara, the Talmud every day, and just completed and had this big Siyum, this big celebration in New York. So we see great spiritual potential in the midst of all this chaos. It seems like Mashiach's close. And so we're going to look at some of the signs that we were given by Chazal. And you can see, and when it happens, it happens. We don't know exactly how it happened, but it does seem like we're on the brink of it. But let's start looking at some of the signs, the simanim we know that Chazal has given us about when Mashiach is close. So one thing was interesting. There was an article recently in Yeshiva World News, I think it was a couple months back, and it was talking about Rav Kaduri Zal, the great Makubal, the great Kabbalist in Yerushalayim in Jerusalem. And he wrote when he was younger. It said in the article he wrote in his Sefer U Shivato Liyitzhak, and he said that the Hebrew year we're in, is 5780, and he said it's a great year of tikkuni. It says this is a great year of personal tikkun, of fixing up ourselves, working on our own midos, working on our own character traits, refining our character traits, refining our midos. Year of teshuvah, like regretting the wrong things we've done and coming closer to Hashem, learning Torah, doing the mitzvos. But he said something fascinating. He said, in Israel, they won't be able to form a government for an extended period of time. And it seems to be very true. The government of Israel, they're going to their third election, and they don't seem to be able to have any kind of government. So he said that the past Rosh Hashanah we just had in 5780, he said, in Shemayim, in heaven, there's going to be this battle between the Sitra Achra, the other side of darkness and evil, against the Sitra de Kedusha, the side of holiness. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, and His legions, they're going to decide between them. So it seems, B'ezrat Hashem, like this case went well for the Sitra Kedusha, because the Israeli government does not seem to be able to form. But it's also a scary time. I mean, it seems like there's war imminent, maybe between America and Iran. And then we'll talk about Russia and Turkey. So let me go into that briefly, and we'll come back to it later. So in 2014, during Purim, Rabbi Moshe Sternbach, who's the Ravad, he's the chief of Ada HaCharedis, it's the main hechsher, the kashrus, the kosher hechsher in Israel, and he is I think a great grandson or a great grandson of the Vilna Gaon, of the Gra. And the Vilna Gaon, he gave his students a secret Masorah to pass down from student to student. I think it started with Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, and it got passed down to the students. And it's interesting, Rabbi Sternbach he's the Rav of the Gra Shul in Harnov. So he said during Purim, he said, we drink the yayin. The gematria of the yayin, the wine, is 70, and sod, secret. The gematria of sod, which means secret, is 70, and famous thing in the Gemara says, nichnas yayin, motzi sod, hotzi sod. When the wine goes in, the secrets come out. So he gave this drasha during Purim. And he said something fascinating, that the Vilna Gaon, in the secret teaching, he saw somewhere in the Torah, that when Russia invades Crimea, get ready for Mashiach. And we saw this during the days of the President Obama's administration, that Russia did take over the Crimea region of the Ukraine. But he says, when Russia invades Istanbul, Constantinople, Istanbul in Turkey, the capital of Turkey, put on your Shabbos clothes and don't take them off because Mashiach's coming. All right, so we'll talk about that a little later. So I want to focus right now on this potential war between America, the USA, and Iran, the Persian Empire. So we see massive tension building between these two nations. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history why all that tension is there. First, I want to read you something really fascinating. It's in Masechta Avodah Zarah. It's on Beis Amid Beis, page 2b. And there's this Tosafos, and he's explaining that why was the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire drawn out into the times of Mashiach? Why is the Roman Empire, which is still existent today in the powers of Europe and North and South America, why are they still around? In these countries, you see Latin, the Roman, the Greco-Roman, buildings and all the capitals, and you still see the ideology behind the Roman Empire in these modern nations of Europe and America. Why is that drawn out? And then the Persian Empire never went away. When the Babylonian Empire was conquered by the Persian Empire, Babylon went away. When the Greek Empire was conquered by the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire just got absorbed into the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire absorbed the first three empires. But these two, Rome and Persia, they're still around. So he says something fascinating. Toso says something fascinating on the Gemara. He says, like, Mashcha Machusaihu ad ase Mashiach, that these kingdoms, these empires will be drawn out until the coming of Mashiach. And he says, and Tosafos says, V'had amrinan asida paras tipol biyad Romi. He says that in the future, Paras, Persia, Iran, will fall into the hands of Rome. Meaning possibly, in this case, it means American Europe, powers of American Europe. Hainu samuk levias hamashiach. And this will be close to the coming of Mashiach. Kidamrina, we learn in Sanhedrin on Daf Samach Amid Beis, and we're going to talk about that Bryce a little later. So Asida Malchus Romi shetif shot al kohalam tisha chadashim. So that in the future, Asida, the empire of Rome, it's going to spread out through all the world, all the globe, for 9 months. And those 9 months are what are referred to as Chevlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach. Just as it takes 9 months for a baby to be born, it's going to take these 9 months of war and travail and suffering in the world, and that's horrible, but it's going to bring the Zemach. It's going to bring a name of Mashiach. He's referred to as the Zemach, the plant, the growth, the growth of the plant, the beginning growth, the little sprout. There it is, a sprout. So what does it mean? So right now, unfortunately, we're watching the seed disintegrated into the ground, and we can't see the seed disintegrating into the ground. But we see massive turmoil in every nation. America is in like this civil war almost. Like half the nation is split against the other half of the nation, and everything's argued about. And we see this all over the world. Like nations are split in the civil war, and the people inside the nations are fighting with each other. And then there's a massive conflict between nations. And this is the disintegration of the seed. In the vision given Nebuchadnezzar in Sefer Daniel, in the book of Daniel, the vision was given to the first king of the first of the empires, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. And he was given this vision of the statue. And the statue had a head of gold, which represented the first empire, Babylon. And it had arms and chest of silver, which represented Persia, because it was split between Persia and Media, Paras and Madai. So the two countries came together to form that empire. And then the copper, the bronze stomach, representing beauty, is Yavan, the Greek Empire. And then after that, the iron legs of East and West Roman Empire. And now today, it may be that the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire in Constantinople, which is now modern-day Turkey, maybe that shifted further east, and that became the power of the Soviet Union and Russia, the Russian Empire, Soviet Union and Russia today. The power of the East of Edom. And the power of the West, I mean, we saw for a time the powers of Europe. We saw the power of France, of England, of Germany, of Spain, Poland, Italy. They all had their moments. And it began in Italy. It all began in Rome. I mean, the ancient Roman Empire is in Rome. But I think today you would have to say that the power of the West is the USA, is America. That's the power of Edom today. And so this Tosfos is a tradition we have. That close to coming of Mashiach, that Persia, Paras, is going to fall into the hands of Edom. And I think this means that America is going to go to war and conquer Iran. So it's not too hard to believe, because we've seen America, take down Saddam Hussein in Iraq. We've seen America fight the Taliban in Afghanistan, and I think they're fighting in places in Africa. And America was, I think, work with France and maybe England, someone I forgot, to take down Libya in northern Africa. And there's fighting in Somalia and Sudan. I mean, there's fighting proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran in Yemen. I think the Obama administration got involved in some drone support and all that. So just see fighting everywhere. And now this tension's growing between America and Iran. So what's the history? So the history is that if we want to start going back, so we have to go back to 1953, the modern tension between America and Iran. So it was in the height of the Cold War, and America was fighting the Soviet Union. And there was, so I think the Shah of Iran was Reza Pahlavi. I'm sorry, I don't know Farsi so well, I don't know the pronunciation so well, I apologize. The Shah of Iran. And I think there was a coup against the Shah. I think the Shah was removed from power, and he was succeeded in power by Premier Mohammad Mossadegh. And I think Mohammad Mossadegh was more sympathetic to the Soviet Union. So I think there was concern in the West, in England and America, that he would align Iran. And Iran had a lot of military support from America and probably Europe back in those days. They were worried about Iran shifting into the influence of the Soviet Union. So I think the CIA and its MI5 or MI6, I don't know which one does I don't know which is the Foreign Intelligence Agency of England, but whatever it was, they worked together, and I think they overthrew Mossadegh and they put the Shah back into power. And I think one of the issues was that Mossadegh wanted to nationalize some of the British oil fields. Whatever it was, this caused a tremendous amount of tension between Iran and the West. And there was some in Iran that started to hate the West. And I think the Shah himself, he lived like a very luxurious lifestyle. And I don't know. So, I mean, maybe there was some corruption. So I think there was also a growing feeling inside Iran that they didn't like the Shah of Iran. So in 1979, the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, he came to power and he leads this Islamic revolution during the administration of Jimmy Carter, President Carter. And he vows himself as an enemy of the U.S. and Israel, and he establishes Islam, the religion of Ishmael, as the official religion now. Because I think the Shah was more secular, more Western. He lived, we said, a very luxurious lifestyle. And now this is a more wanted to the Ayatollah wanted more of the values of Islam. So not the drinking and the drugs, and more modest dress and adhering to the religious dictates of Islam. Now, the protesters at the time, the young Iranian protesters that were involved with this revolution, this Islamic revolution, they took over the U.S. Embassy and they took 98 hostages. And it created a lot of tension between the Carter administration and this new Ayatollah in Iran. And then there was an oil crisis, a gas crisis in America. There was long lines back in those days, because I think there was an embargo from Iran, and then OPEC, the Arab powers, jacked up the price of oil and gas, and it created that whole oil crisis. Then when Ronald Reagan became president, then I think the Ayatollah, I think on the inauguration day, he released the hostages. All right, so we see something interesting in the Zohar. So in Parsha Vayera, page, I think it's Da 32a, the Zohar says something fascinating. It says, in the future, the children of Ishmael will stir great wars in the world. And the children of Edom, meaning the powers of Europe, the West, like, Australia, South Africa, North America, South America, the children of Edom will gather against them and make war with them. Now, the first war, it says, one will be a war on the sea. And I think, we'll talk about this, I think this could refer to the war between America and maybe Europe, against Iran. And one on the land, and one by Jerusalem. And each will prevail over the other, but the Holy Land will not fall into the hands of Edom. So, okay, you may say Persia, they're descended from Japheth. They're the same descendants of the people of Europe, the same descendants of the nations of France and Germany and England and Italy. Well, Italy, even though they're the generals of Asa, but most of Europe is descended from Japheth, one of the three sons of Noah, and so is Persia. So Persia is not really. Persia is more connected with Europe than the Arab nations who are descended from Ishmael. But I think in this case, it refers to Iran because Iran in 79, when they adopt Islam and they become the Islamic Republic, they adopted the religion of Ishmael, Islam. So I think they could be referred to as Ishmael. I don't know. Let's see. All right, so further tension. So in 1983 in Lebanon, now Iran has its proxies throughout the world. So Iran supports the terrorist organization Hezbollah in Lebanon. They support Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Israel and Gaza. They support, I think there's a Hezbollah now in Iraq. It just came in, into play, and and they have their proxies in Yemen, and that's really, they're it's still a little bit of a Persian Empire. I mean, they have their strength to influence other nations, and of course they're in Syria. They're allied with Russia and with Bashar, the leader of Syria. So in '83, October 23rd, 1983, there was 2 truck bombs that killed 241 U.S. soldiers and 58 soldiers. And I think it was the 8th Battalion of Marines and the 2nd Marine Division. And there was 2 truck bombs, and it was one of the worst attacks on U.S. forces. And then in 1994, there was an attack in Argentina, and forgive my Spanish here, on the Asociación Mutual Israelita Argentina. I think it's kind of like a Jewish community center in Argentina. It's a very big building as far as I understand. And it was on July 18th, 1994. I think it was 1 truck bomb, and it was a horrible attack on this Jewish center in Argentina that killed 85 people, and hundreds of people were injured. Now, the prosecutor in Argentina, I think he was also Jewish, his name was Alberto Nisman, and he was actually murdered. And he accused Iran and Hezbollah of being behind this attack. He filed a 300-page document, and he accused Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, who was the president, prime minister, the leader of the country at the time, of covering all this up. And he was killed the night before he was supposed to testify before Congress in Argentina. All right, so this leads us all now into our recent times, which we're all familiar with. So we've seen a lot of tension in the Strait of Hormuz. We see, the Iran had, they shot down some American drones. I think America shot down some Iranian drones, and there was taking of some of the oil tankers, the British oil tanker, and I think Saudi Arabian tankers, maybe UAE. I forgot. I mean, there's so much of this going back and forth now. And Iran attacked I think an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia, and the tension's ratcheting up. But when Iran attacked, I'm sorry, it's escaping where the attack was, but it killed an American contractor, and then that really ratcheted up the tension. I think President Trump was willing to let it go when it was just machinery. It's like, you destroy our machinery, we'll destroy your machinery. But when it became an American troop that got killed, or American contractor, then the tension went up. And I think then there was an attack, there was an airstrike on some of the Iranian facilities, I think in Iraq. And then just very recently, the drone strike which killed General Qasem Soleimani, and then the head of Kataib Hezbollah. I forgot his name right now. And now the world's waiting for this repercussion. What will Iran do? So we see this massive tension building between America and Iran, and it seems like from some of these sources that it's going to become to a confrontation. There's also the possibility, since proxies of Iran are Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas and Islamic Jihad, it seems like there possibly could be some kind of retaliation. And they've already threatened, I think Iran's just recently threatened to attack Haifa, which is in northern Israel. And they threatened to attack some Israeli military bases. And I think they threatened a certain amount of strikes. And I think President Trump threatened them back with 52 Iranian strikes, which would maybe be actually in Iran. So the tension's there that this could all break out to a war. And Chas v'shalom, I don't even know. I mean, pray for the safety of. And also this General Soleimani. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention before. He was responsible for killing, I think the quote is 600, maybe over 600 American military personnel in Iraq by these IEDs, by these roadside bombs. And General Soleimani was in charge of the Al-Quds Force, which I think is kind of like the Iranian intelligence organization. It's their intelligence apparatus, and he's behind a lot of these terrorist proxy attacks all over the world, as I mentioned some of them. And anyway, so let's look into Sanhedrin on it's page 97a, Daf, Tzadik Zion Amud Aleph. It says here in a brisa. It says Rabbi Yehuda says, he says, Dor shebein David ba'vo, that the generation in which Ben David, meaning Mashiach ben David, when he will come, Beis Hava'ad Yihyeh Liznus, that public meeting places will be for like immorality. And I think we really saw this for the first time in the 60s in like Woodstock, where you had a public gathering where people were right in public, right in front of the cameras, they were engaging in a little bit of, all kinds of immorality. Besides just the drug use, like the physical relations right out and open in public. And maybe it doesn't seem so shocking now because there's so many of these, rock concerts and this and that. But I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on right in public. There's not that public modesty anymore. V'hagalil yecharav. Now this is the really scary one. It says the Galil, the northern region of Israel, will be destroyed. I don't know what that means, but I feel like unfortunately we're coming close to that time. And I pray for the safety of the Jewish people in northern Israel. But I feel like with this tension with America and Iran, this could lead to a Hezbollah attacking, invading the north. We saw in the second war of Israel and Lebanon, when Hezbollah sent all kinds of rocket attacks into Israel. And recently, there's been some tension from, I think it was Islamic Jihad. The Israelis killed, one of the leaders of, Islamic Jihad. And there was some rockets back and forth and airstrikes. And this is scary because this is the thing that's not happened yet. And most of the other Semani have happened, but we're very close to the days of this, V'hagalil yecharav, an invasion possibly of Hezbollah from the north. V'anshe gavul yesovavu me'ir le'ir v'lo yechu nanu. And the people of the border, people in the settlements, possibly in this region, the Galil region, they will wander from city to city, and they won't be granted any favor. And I saw this personally in the days of the disengagement from Gaza. Me and a couple of my friends, we spent this beautiful Shabbos in Gush Katif, Invade Dakalim, in what used to be the settlement in Gaza before the disengagement, before the Israeli government, uprooted everyone that lived there, and people lost their homes, and they did it, and they were wandering from hotel room to hotel room, and they didn't quite get their homes back. And B'ezrat Hashem, they have homes, but Chas v'Shalom, we could be looking at this future invasion and the great destruction of homes in northern Israel, and people will be wandering around looking for a place to live. It says, "V'chakma hasofrim tisrach," and the wisdom of the scholars, of the Torah scholars, will decay. And there's very few gedolim in the world that really know all the Torah. Baruch Hashem that we have Daf Yomi and everyone's learning a Daf, of Gemara a day, but we have so few Chachamim, so few that know all Shas, all Gemara, all the Halakha, all the Shulchan Aruch, all, the Rishonim and Acharonim, and just know how to paskin, all the Tanakh, the Nevi'im, the Midrashim, the Halakha. Just so few of us know it all. A lot of us, Baruch Hashem, we're learning, but so few of us, like a Rav Avadia Yosef, like a Rav Chaim Kanievsky, like, the Ger Rebbe, like so few of us, and so few in the world, that, these great Gedolim that know it all, know all the Torah. Ufanei Hadur Uvayirei Chet Yima Esu. And those who fear sin will be despised. And we see this in Israel with the Charedim. The Jews that, are trying to keep the Torah and do the mitzvos, and, they don't even have so much secular, influence from the world. And they're hated in Israel. They're hated. Oh, the Charedim this, the Charedim that. Jews that are just learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, they're hated. They should be revered. It's crazy times we live in. Upanei hadur bifnei kelev, and the face of the generation will be like a dog. Now this one's fascinating. So we'll go into the Meforshim a little bit in this. So Rashi says people will look like dogs, which is kind of interesting. He said it's the name of his teacher. This was said by the Tiferes Yisrael. Alternately, like a dog, they'll have no shame. So Rashi says that a dog has no shame, people have no shame. This, unfortunately, we really see. The Yad Ramah says that it's the trait of brazenness. People have a lot of chutzpah. And it said that also in the Mishnah and Sota, they're talking about also before the coming of Mashiach, that people have chutzpah, a lot of chutzpah in the world. For sure we see the chutzpah in the world. The Chidah says insolence. And then the Gemara in Beitza, it says a dog is the most brazen of creatures. So the Marashah, he says it's referring to hypocrisy. And this for sure we see. We see one political party accusing another political party of what they've done, and the hypocrisy is just off the charts. Now a dog, a kelev, is a kulo lev. He's all heart, and he's utterly devoted to his master. But in the times before Mashiach, unfortunately, this is horrible. People will appear on their faces to be loyal to their friends. They'll feel very friendly to their friends, but a dog's loyal to its master, but in their hearts they'll feel otherwise. It's so sad. So Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman, he said in Ikvasa de Mashiach, in his Sefer, the Footsteps of the Mashiach, he said, he gave this explanation in the name of Rebbe Yisrael Salanter. And this is really fascinating in the current political climate. He says, Pnei Ador means the leaders of the generation, their behaviors of the leaders of the generation will resemble that of dogs. The dog is walked by its master and it trots ahead, and it appears that it's like it's leading. But in reality, the master chooses the direction which to go. And the dog comes to a fork in the road, and it stops and waits for its master to direct it. And in the days before Mashiach, the leaders will appear only to be leading the nation, but in reality, they'll be following the whims of the masses. And we really see this with every politician. They're always talking about the polls. Oh, if this poll's popular, that's what the politician does. So they appear to be leading, but they really have not many ideas of their own. And they're constantly checking the polls to see what the public wants. Whatever the public wants, that's what they'll do. If the polling's good, they'll do it. If the polling's no good, they'll change course. And it's really sad. So the final things it says in the Brisa, it says, V'ha'emes nederes. The truth will be absent. And it's so sad. In the age of fake news and disinformation, you can't trust sources of information, reputed, great sources of, journalism and media. You can barely trust anything they're saying. It's more propaganda and bias now, whatever side, right or left. You can find, things biased to the right, things biased to the left. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, "Vatihi ha'emes nederes v'sar meira umish toleo," and the truth will be absent, and he that turns away from evil will become foolish. Okay, so we don't know exactly what's going to come, but it just seems like from all this tension in the world that there is potentially this war coming between America and Iran. And we've seen the power, the military power of America just overcame Iraq so quickly and overcame Afghanistan and took out Libya so quickly. And I even though like Iran has a powerful navy in the Strait of Hormuz, I think it will be maybe a great sea battle, but I think it'll be overcome very quickly by America, just like Iraq. And if you think about it, that Iran and Iraq fought, a 7-9 year war, like almost to a stalemate. And it just seems like the superior force of America would overcome. So if this does happen, if there's a war between America and Iran, I feel like Iran will instigate its proxies and there'll be some kind of invasion in Israel. We can see potentially these things fitting together. And then we see in Turkey, Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, is kind of alienated himself. Turkey's a member of NATO, the powers of the West, Edom, but he's kind of alienated himself because he himself is Islamic and the nation is Islamic and it's moving away from its secular past. And he's kind of alienated himself from his allies in NATO by invading the northern portion of Syria and going after the Kurds, who are allies of America and allies of the British and the French. So he's kind of alienated himself from his allies in NATO, and he's also on odds, with the Arab powers, with the rest of the Islamic powers by invading Syria. So they've overstepped their bounds into Syria, and they're antagonizing Russia and Iran and the Syrians. And I feel like there could be this three-way reaction, and then there's been tension between Russia and Turkey. We saw, I think, Turkey shot down a Russian, fighter jet, I think, a couple years ago, and there's been and then the tension of Turkey invading Syria, now them being in the northern part of Syria when Russia is there. And potentially, if we see America go to war against Iran, some kind of Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, invasion of Israel, northern Israel, we could see potentially Russia take this opportunity to go into Turkey, which is the major conduit into Europe, and all those pipelines of oil running into Europe. All right, so it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. It's scary, and there's a lot going on. B'ezrat Hashem, people, should be safe, and there shouldn't be so much bloodshed, and it's horrible, there's potential for this great war. But it's a great time for spiritual growth. Rav Kaduri said it's a year of tikkunim. It's a great year to fix ourselves up. And the Gemara says there's two protections in these days: Torah, learning Torah, and Gemilas Chasadim, so important, doing kindness for other people. So let's learn Torah, let's be kind to our family and friends, and let's pray for the best. And hopefully, the best, maybe we see the coming of Mashiach, and we see a world built more on, kindness and mishpat and fairness and justice, and something better than all this sickness and war and what we're seeing right now. And we see the growth of the Semach, the sprout, and the coming of Mashiach. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet Good Torah. Thank you very much.